I haven't even looked at Battlefield Premium yet.
There we go. Okay, right, we're recording now. Yeah, so yeah, this is kind of interesting. His name is Chris Early, and he's Ubisoft's head of digital publishing. So I was reading this thing today, and basically they're talking about how, I mean, when I did my interview with Tay Kelly, and that's on Pixel Enemy for anyone who hasn't seen, we were talking about gaming and everything in that, and what we were talking about was the fact that many publishers now, we're talking about hype and things like that, and I was saying about how hype has become this massive deal for selling games, and saying, could it be a bad thing, could it be a negative thing? And he was saying, well, a lot of publishers now are sort of targeting only a few games per year rather than bashing out several games, and this is kind of confirmed by this interview with Chris Early from Ubisoft. And what they were saying was that he was talking about that what they try to do now, the way people game has changed, and that it used to be like 15 years ago when I started playing consoles and stuff like that, that you'd be playing there with your console and that's it. You'd just be sitting there, play, and that is still kind of true. People do play like that, but there is a whole thing of people play very differently now. So they may have like a laptop with them, they might be doing stuff on that, they might stop, they might get on their iPhone or whatever phone they've got, and play on that, or on their commute they might want to take it with them, and so on and so on. So what he was saying was that they're starting to look at like things like the Ghost Recon franchise and stuff like that they will actually start to transfer elements of the game across platform. So you may have like some account, and then you may be able to actually improve your character by doing certain elements in other things as well. So you might do stuff online, you might do it on your phone, and you might basically do it across platform. So they're trying to build up this whole larger brand, and then that ties in with other things like subscriptions and DLCs and extra content. So they're trying to create like this whole sort of package where you can kind of cover all the bases, as it were. I just think that's kind of interesting, and he's saying that is the way it's going to go in the next few years. So I think that's sort of one to watch, but it does contrast against this kind of backlash people have against subscriptions, and I think people just need to wake up and realize that things are changing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's basically what it comes down to. I mean, this whole generation is all basically internet based, and no one can get offline, period. I mean, think about everyone just take a second and think about how much time you spend online, like per day, like on your average, and it's probably a couple hours. I mean, not even work related. We're just talking about messing around, having fun.
Yeah, at the least.
So you really can't blame developers for kind of not trying to take advantage. I don't think that's, I mean, it is a business, so you can't disprove that argument, but I really don't think that's what they're going for. They're just trying to integrate that other side of your life. Like, okay, we see you really enjoy video games, but you're also online a lot. So instead of having to do all this solely through your console, let's try and make it easier, and you can do it all on your PC or your Mac or on your iPhone, doesn't matter. And just kind of trying to further expand on that, just the whole experience of the game.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that it will just expand more depending on how people play it. I mean, there's the whole thing of, are we moving towards things more digitally? And a video that I want to make as well is about, in the UK, there is an on-street game franchise which is called Game, and also Game Station. I don't know what you have in the US. What's the sort of main high street game shop in the US?
GameStop, I think, would probably be it.
Yeah, GameStop. So it's basically the equivalent. And in the UK, basically, they almost went into administration. They almost got shut down recently. And I read another thing about that, about how that kind of came about and how it sort of went down. And it was basically due to kind of like really bad management practices. But the interesting thing about it is this idea of, okay, what would happen if, I mean, they were basically the major portal for games in the UK, basically, other than of course some music shops and things like that. And what I thought about was interesting was what would happen if they suddenly just literally, they went into administration, they got shut down, okay, and there was no sort of retail outlet basically other than maybe online, so you can buy stuff online, of course, but there wasn't any sort of street presence as such. There's nothing on your high street for that. And it made me think, well, okay, are we actually moving towards just fully digital downloads? Are we moving towards a situation where, I mean, you only have to look at the expansion of like the PSN store and things like that, and look at the way that EA is doing things online and the whole ID thing. It's got to be moving towards possibly a point in time where we will not actually have physical games, things that will move purely to a digital situation. I just think it's really interesting how that could happen. And again, in some of the interviews I've read recently with, sort of industry people, they've all sort of mentioned that.
Yeah, and I'm totally fine with it. And it's just the natural progression of things, You've got all this crazy technology that's been coming out, and think about it, the kind of the heart of everything gaming, for the most part, has just stayed the same. It's all been an actual hardware-driven thing. Every game still comes on some sort of disc, yet the technology behind just, the TVs, the consoles, everything you put in your PC just keeps going crazy through the roof. So this is kind of the natural projection. Like, let's go even beyond what the PS4 is going to be able to do, or the Xbox 720, and let's take the generation after that. Like, you can't even comprehend what kind of technology is going to go into those next consoles, because things like that, any computer technology, just, it progresses on this crazy level so fast on a daily basis. So, say again, 2 generations from now, the PS5. Do you really want to keep putting a disc in there? Like, it's going to seem so prehistoric.
Yeah, I mean, they were already saying this about, I mean, just think about it as well. It wasn't so long ago that having anything other than a cartridge was unimaginable. And when the PS came out originally, we were like having CDs, which was, this big deal. We were like, wow. And also remember that when the PS originally came out, Nintendo didn't immediately change over to disc. They released the 64, and so you had cartridges as well. So cartridges didn't go away. So it could be that, for example, I mean, whichever one is going to be placed first, I don't think any of the big, someone's going to have to take a gamble on it. So, either Sony or Microsoft or, Nintendo, one of them will probably have to roll the dice and see, unless perhaps we had some third-party thing come in. I mean, there is obviously these, the other portals, things like Steam and stuff like that.
Right, and on the other side of the argument would be, it's not even that, it's just a natural progression. Well, everything else is just so high-tech. Well, we don't want to deal with discs because it just seems silly, and it seems kind of low-tech compared to everything else you're playing on. It's going to go beyond that, in that, okay, well, we have these ridiculous games because you have these incredibly powerful consoles or PCs that can play these incredibly detailed games. They can, legitimately not fit on a disc anymore. Now it's again, the other side of the argument is it's a need-based change. We cannot fit, this game is going to be I don't know, we'll just throw out some stupid number. It could be like 100 gigabyte file. That's not going to fit on a disc, or 150 byte gig file. So it has to go just all downloadable content.
Yeah. And the other thing is as well that, you can obviously do that now, whereas, years before you wouldn't have been able to, because the infrastructure was not there. You didn't have the ability. You didn't have optical internet. You didn't have fiber optic, internet. Whereas now you do. I mean, years ago, I would have been lucky to get sort of 3, 4, 5 megabyte, download. Now we're up towards more like 50 meg, and so on and so on. So, everything changes, and as people's internet connection speeds, as things get better, that will become more viable. So maybe it's not something you're going to see immediately, but in the next 10 years, I would imagine that it's going to move towards that. But let's bear in mind as well that they didn't plan to release like a PS4 for several years to come. It's going to be at least, I would have thought, 3 or 4 years, before that comes out, because they've said, Sony have officially stated that, they don't want to release a new console until the PS3 has run its 10-year lifespan.
Right, and unfortunately, I think their hand is going to be forced well before that, because Microsoft has to move ahead with a new console, just to be able to at least get on Blu-ray, so they can put more information on their discs. Because that's really the only thing holding them back.
Yeah,
and
that's definitely true.
Right, and if they do that, it's just going to put Sony in a deeper hole trying to catch up. The downside, the reason why Xbox is so much more popular than PS3 is because PS3, when it came out, not too long after Xbox, it was $600. Not many people have $600 to spend. So if they were to wait for the full lifespan of the PS3 to go out, by that point, they'd be so far behind, it would just be game over. The entire market would be cornered by Xbox.
That is true, but I do remember reading some statistics that, and I think it was an Edge possibly, where they were looking at, I might actually be able to find that article and talk about it another time actually. But I think they were talking about like sales and long-term goals and how Sony had a slightly different game plan to Microsoft in that respect. So, and I think it did pan out kind of in Sony's favor, but I'll have to dig that one up. But it is an interesting thing to think about. But I know the reason they wanted to run with the 10-year sort of span was because with the PS2, they found that towards the end of, when they were bringing out the PS3, they were still making really good games for the PS2, like really playable games, really good stuff. Much, much better, obviously, than when it originally came out. And they found that, even though developers obviously know what the system limitations are, it takes them a while to figure out how they can kind of maximize the potential of the system. And so games do get progressively better as the system goes on. So I think what they wanted to do was give developers an opportunity to get the maximum amount of potential out of the system, and that's why they moved it onto a longer lifespan.
That would make sense. I wouldn't argue that. Yeah, it all sounds good to me.
So I just think it's interesting the way things are moving on. But yeah, so let's just bring it back to Battlefield though, and with this new speculative update that'll be coming in again. So I can't really talk about who I spoke to about it, but I did hear this several months ago, and yeah, I don't understand what the big deal is. I really don't. I don't understand why people have this huge chip on their shoulder about it. I mean, they're basically giving you more content, and it's optional. So at the end of the day, it's not a bad thing. I'm also surprised by a lot of people saying they didn't originally tell us this when we bought the game, therefore it's bullshit. And it's like, really, you're upset that 7 months down the line they're releasing extra content for you to play that wasn't in your original £40 or whatever it would be in the year. I don't know what the
$60.
Yeah, $60. I figured it'd be about that. Yeah, so your $60 price. The way I think of games is this, because I've often, for example, some of my friends and colleagues, when I buy a new game and they go, that's a lot of money. They were like, that's, £40, that's a lot of money to spend on something like that. For a game, that's the great one they always come out with. It's for a game. I hate that term. But yeah, they always sort of say it's a lot of money to pay out in one go. But I say this, if you buy a DVD, how much does a DVD cost now? Now, if you're buying an old film, okay, it might cost you £3, $5 or whatever. If you're buying a kind of fairly new DVD, it might cost you £10, sort of, I don't know, $13, $14, $15, something like that. But regardless, okay, how much real view time are you going to get compared to the money? How long does a film or movie last? An hour or two? So you're paying up, now just, okay, so that money, times that by 4, so 4 films, how much hours are you going to get out of that? 8 hours gameplay? When you buy a game and you pay, your price for it, how many hours gameplay do you get out of it? Hundreds and hundreds of hours, months and months and months and months gameplay. So for them people to turn around and say, oh, I paid for this game and I expected you to give me all this content for free. Please, seriously, are they just taking the piss or what,
I could not agree more. It's funny because my father-in-law is one of the most frugal people you'll ever meet, and I wouldn't say he's cheap. He's just very, very careful with how he spends his money, and he does not waste it anywhere. Everything is very, very carefully planned out. And he even said to me, because he sees how much I play video games and stuff, he says, playing video games, buying any video game is the smartest way you could possibly spend your money, so long as you enjoy it, because you get so much value for your dollar. Exactly. $60 game. But with Battlefield 3, perfect example, $60. I think I have about 130 hours into it so far.
Yeah, I have.
Think about that. For $60, I've got over 100 hours of actual in-game time. We're not talking about times you're just spending in menus and stuff. You really narrow it down. Go the other way. If you were to look at it on a broad scale, and tally up all your time from the moment you turn on your console, the moment you turn it off, it's ridiculous how much time you put in. And for $60, you're talking about well over 1 full week, a non-stop full week from Sunday midnight to Sunday midnight again of playing a video game for $60. How is that not worth your money?
Exactly. And then, so you go on with these expansions and people are talking about subscriptions and stuff like that. And it's like, whatever they release, it's not going to be so groundbreaking that people have. I mean, they're not that stupid. They're not going to alienate. You know, the EA and DICE, you know, they're large companies that have been around for ages. Do people honestly think that they're so stupid that they would alienate like an entire player base of their game and possibly their entire brand? You know, in the way that they set it up? They're not that stupid. They're gonna, you know, they're gonna give you some little treats, yeah, for sure. You know, and okay, maybe if they throw a few assignments that allow you to get some weapons, etc. But as I said already, you know, with the assignments that we had for Karkand, they haven't broken the game. Okay, some people use different weapons, but you know, as I've said before, the main reason as well why I don't like to do weapon reviews is because they're so personal. People handle all different guns in such a different way that I often find, you know, weapon reviews to be fairly irrelevant. Because if one guy goes, "Oh, I'm really loving the P90, it's so good," someone else will pick it up and they won't be able to handle it at all. But they might be a beast with a G3. So, you know, I find that kind of thing irrelevant. So when people talk about getting guns in from, you know, expansions, DLCs and things like that, and they say that it's unfair and that everyone should be on the same playing field, I don't really agree. Like we say, we've already got their money's worth out of it, so, you know, they can do whatever they want and people can buy it or not. It's just as simple as that, really.
Right, and the thing that really bothers me when people kind of complain about this, like, oh, we have to spend more money for all this stuff, it's like, what is the problem? Are you really complaining about the fact that you're going to get more variety in the game that you love so much? Like, I love Battlefield. I think it's a phenomenal game. So for them to come out and say, listen, we're offering this expansion pack for 10 or 15 bucks, like, oh, yeah, I'm going to buy it. I mean, yeah, it's only a handful of maps, but it's so much more variety. Like, for that $15, that probably adds like another 60 to 80 hours of life to this game for me.
I might spend that. I might spend that on my food at work one day, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's typically what you go out and spend per person if you were to go out for dinner.
Per day.
So,
yeah, no, yeah.
Right. So it's like, it's totally worth my time and my money. And again, you know, some people, okay, fine, it doesn't look appealing to you, you don't have to buy it. It's not like you absolutely have to. It's like, well, sorry, if you don't buy this DLC, you cannot play the game anymore. It's totally up to you guys. It's nothing's forced.
I mean, that's an interesting one as well, is that, you know, I actually think that EA have done it very cleverly. In fact, actually, the idea that you can earn weapons through a DLC and bring them back into the main game is really clever, because it allows people to purchase a DLC, unlock stuff there, but still be integrated into the main game. That's actually a really clever thing to do, because often a problem with DLCs is that, as I said again in my interview with Tague the other day, that it can split communities. Because if you look at stuff like with Killzone 3, in Killzone 3 they released these DLC content patches, but you could only play those certain maps if you had the DLC. So what it ended up doing was, out of the percentage player base online, maybe 30-40% of people that had purchased the DLC were in those matches, but then other people couldn't be in them. So it means that overall you don't get such a good pool of players to take out of. But at least with Battlefield, it kind of mixes it up a bit, and you can actually kind of achieve stuff and go back into the main games. So it keeps people kind of healthily, you know, continuing to play like that.
Right, and it's nice because it's another incentive, being able to unlock those weapons, because it's not just oh, well, I can only use them for the DLC specifically, I can only use them within those maps. Being able to take them around the rest of the game is a nice incentive, and it adds more depth to the game. It's like, oh, okay, sweet, well, now I have like a purpose. I've unlocked everything else, I have a purpose again. Like, if I just put in the time on this, I can unlock this gun and I can take it and, you know, completely tear up people throughout the rest of the maps. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that.
It is a bit of a double-edged sword. I totally understand that, you know, some people are going to view it as unfair, that basically it can give other people an advantage over others who haven't, and some people view it that, you know, therefore they're kind of extorting it from you. They're saying, you know, unless you get this, you can't have this. And a lot of people sort of view that that's unfair and that you should only be able to unlock equipment through the game. I kind of am on board with that, but on the other hand, I think that, you know, if you're going to release a DLC of some kind, at least reward the people who have actually wanted to spend and sort of purchase that and, you know, put back into the brand. I guess you could look at it in that way as well, you know, being loyal to the brand by sort of, you know, putting back into it. I know some people might not view it that way, but I think you can look at it that way. And, you know, so therefore it's good to actually have weapons and stuff that you can unlock. Let's not forget that, like in Bad Company 2 as well, when Bad Company 2 came out the first time, and they had a whole series of little like mini events at the start which allowed you to unlock certain weapons. And some of the weapons, okay, you could only unlock if you had like IDs, or you had, I can't remember how they did it, but you had like proof that, you know, you played like Battlefield 2 and so on and so on, 1943 and things like that. And if you had unlocked those things, that's right, if you had played Battlefield 1943 on the PS or anything else like that, when you went into Bad Company 2, it gave you like the classic M1911. And with the Magnum ammo, that gun was unstoppable. It was so overpowered, and they didn't ever fix it. But if you had that gun against it would beat pretty much any other pistol. So it was just ridiculous. And, you know, that completely excluded people who had never purchased that. But, you know, it didn't break the game. It just meant that some people had a nice little perk. And I don't think there's anything too badly wrong with that. As long as I mean, let's face it as well, there's plenty of other much worse things like the Dart and the USAS. So I'd be more concerned with those and not these stupid, you know, just the assignments, because they don't break the game.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. It's just all excellent points. I really don't know what else to add on top of that.
Yeah, sorry, I should just continue talking by myself, and you can just go.
I'm just sitting here nodding my head. Yeah, I agree. I mean, the other thing we can talk about is the Close Quarters DLC that's coming up, and kind of how the whole community is divided. Me personally, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm one of the few people, it seems like I'm one of the few people that really enjoys TDM. I love playing the objective. If you look at any of my stats, especially any of the gameplay on our channel, you cannot argue I love playing the objective. But there are times when I'd want to play the game because I love the feel of it, I love the mechanics, just everything about it. But I don't want to be beating my head up against the wall trying to play the objective. So I just want to go and kill people. So that's why I like TDM. And the whole Close Quarters thing I look at is kind of a bigger expansion on TDM. I know it's obviously not going to be that. That's just kind of how I'm looking at it within my weird head. But the thing is, like, all these people are making these comparisons like, oh, it's trying to make it like Call of Duty, or, oh, these small maps, that's not Battlefield. Well, it's like you guys are all forgetting that down the road, they have more DLC planned, and it's going to give you those more traditional, larger scale BF3 maps. And everything about Battlefield 3 right now is large scale. So it all comes back to that, the variety is the spice of life. Let's give it another dimension. Let's try and put it on a much smaller scale instead of spread out on one surface. Let's make it a small scale overall perimeter of the map, but make it still pretty big, but we're just going to play it vertically. And I kind of like that. It'll really kind of take advantage of the game engine in a totally different way. And I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, and I think it is actually interesting. I think it's silly when people try to start making comparisons like it's too much like COD or whatever. It's like I've said before, you know, developers can't win. If they change something too much, they get complained about. If they don't change it enough, they get complained about. So they can't ever win. They've just got to do whatever content they can and hope that it goes down well. I have to say as well, people know that I'm all about the objective. I mean, that's pretty much what most of my videos are based around, is objective play. Rush is my favourite. I think it's because Rush suits console a little bit better than Conquest does, because you don't have as many people, so therefore it can lead to too much flanking and not as much gameplay. Rush is a bit better because it's more you know, tunneled, and you know, you get a bit more direct gameplay, so it tends to be a bit more intense. But when it comes to TDM, and like I've said on some of my stuff recently, TDM is a really great tool. Because it allows you to sort of practice stuff and focus on that kind of fast gameplay, which is really necessary. But also, I'm really on board with the whole thing of, you know, just because people love objective gameplay, it doesn't mean that they shouldn't have the facility to be able to actually do just, you know, team deathmatch. And let's face it as well, how many times have you been in a game where someone is literally just playing for kills, and you're just like, Christ's sake, why don't they just go and play team deathmatch? So, you know, I think there is a thing like that where people can really focus on it, and I do. You know, I've been doing it more recently. I think also since they did some fixes to the team deathmatch mode, because when it originally came out it was very, very bad. But since they've changed it around, it's a bit better. You still get a couple of maps that aren't perfect, but overall I think they've improved it a lot. And yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to the DLC. I haven't done any videos about it or anything like that because I thought it'd be much better, rather than to make loads of speculative comments based off a couple of videos, to wait until it comes out, and then I'm going to do a full sort of overview on the first day. I'll probably I'll probably take some days off work. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I think it's going to offer a lot. And at the end of the day, people are going to complain, people are going to make stupid comments, but I actually think it's going to offer a lot. And like you say, the sort of the vertical gameplay element, I'm a little bit worried about that, because I think that the vertical element could lead to a lot of incidents when you're kind of walking along. You have a little look up, you see on the first floor above you it's clear, but then you get sniped from somewhere else. I can imagine a lot of situations where there's going to be people sitting on the top floor with a 6 or 8 by scope just picking people off and, you know, finding little campy spots and stuff like that. So it could get a little bit irritating, but I think it could be funny as well to have grenades raining down on you and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's gonna really kind of make you stop and think in a totally different way. How do I need to tackle this? Because again, it's not horizontal. Now we've changed it to a vertical environment. So it actually make you the complete player. If you can excel really well with the DLC and you still, you still excel really well with other maps, like how does that not make you the complete player? If you know what I mean? I think it's gonna be great, and I really think it's gonna emphasize teamwork, because I guarantee you will run into those situations where you've got some guy up on the 3rd floor. We'll say there's just 3 floors. There's some guy on the 3rd floor trying to snipe, and maybe he's got one buddy up there with an LMG. It's gonna take your whole squad to get up there and take him out, and it's gonna take a lot of teamwork and a lot of different tactics. Yeah. But that, to me, that sounds awesome. It's like, okay, here's a challenge. How do we unseat these guys who have the the elevated advantage above us? And just like that aspect of it makes it really exciting for me, because I love challenges like that.
Well, and the other thing is that, I played COD for ages. I played COD, played COD 4, played Modern Warfare 2, played Black Ops, etc., etc. So, I played through them, and COD overall, it's not a bad series, it's just turned bad and got a bit boring over time, that's all. And I still go back sometimes to play COD 4 with my clan, and it's still so much fun, because you're all there, it's all close quarters, you're all just thrashing it out, and it's good. It makes a nice change, just the same as if you're playing like Unreal Tournament or something like that. It's fast, it's close quarters, you're really mixing it up, so it's really good. And I think with this it'll offer a little bit of that. And also, it makes me think, how many times have you played COD when there's someone in a building and you just wish, for Christ's sake, I wish I could just blow the hell out of the side of that building so that I could take that guy camping in there out. That's why I say as well, it's stupid to compare it to COD, because it won't be anything like that. Battlefield, with the engine that it has, sometimes a solution to someone camping in a building is to just keep firing rockets and grenades at it and blow the hell out of it until they come out of there. You don't have to run in and clear them out. Whereas if you're playing COD, you often do get that situation where someone is stuck in a position and you can't dig them out, because it doesn't matter how you approach it, they always have the drop on you. Whereas in Battlefield, there's usually some kind of, alternate solution.
Yeah, exactly. It's impossible to camp a room if the room doesn't exist. And that's what I love about Battlefield 3. You can make that room not exist. And you can't do that in COD. It's the person that gets in that room and locks it down. However, if they're just camping in a corner behind something and head glitching and focus down the door, there's really not a whole lot you can do about that other than a lucky RPG or a really good frag. Yeah. But yeah, Battlefield 3 is this totally different element. You can eliminate the environment or the cover that they're hiding behind, and then it's just like, well, now what are you gonna do?
I think also I'm looking forward to the fact that a lot of the time in Battlefield you have to try and be really accurate, you have to be really precise, blah blah blah, and I'm just looking forward to a situation where I can run down a corridor hip firing an LMG going just like and you see from the trailer all the plasterboard explosions and stuff like that. It'll be really nice to kind of just see 2 or 3 people in your vague area and just open fire and just like tear it all apart. I think it's just going to be a really fun DLC, and I think that people want it, and then like you say, that's going to be balanced up by the fact that after that they're going to release the more serious kind of typical Battlefield maps. So I can't see how people can really see it's a bad thing. It's not going to like compromise the franchise or anything like that, or the typical thing where people suddenly think there's going to be some invasion of non-generic Battlefield players or something like that. It's stupid. I really don't understand where people get off, to be honest. I just think it's going to be fun, and people just need to let it go and just chill out, really.
Yeah, I agree. It's just, again, it's all about having that variety. It's not like the original maps are going to go away. Those are still going to be there for you guys. So if you're just not at all interested in the smaller maps, then just wait for some reviews to come up and then decide what you want to do from there. But me personally, Just anything new right now would be great, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's the other thing as well. You know, there's so many people making videos. I'm going to make a video. I'm sure a lot of people will. There'll be a lot of discussion about it. If you're not sure if you're going to like it, just wait for a couple of days, and then you'll be able to see, you know, you'll be able to see what other people think about it and base your decision off of that. And the same thing goes with the subscription, possible subscription. Nobody said it's a subscription, but, you know, with that kind of the Battlefield Premium thing as well, you know, until it comes out, there's no point really getting your, you know, getting your knickers in a twist over it. You just have to literally just wait and see what happens. It may be really awesome. It may not be worth bothering with. We just have to wait and see. But overall, the fact that they're actually releasing this stuff, the fact also they've actually given us a timeline and said, you know, this is hopefully how things are going to go down, I think it all speaks really well for them as a company and, you know, the support that they give the community. I really can't see there's a negative in it at all.
Right. You're so good at explaining exactly what I want to say that it's like I really have nothing to add to this.
I'm going to leave that in because it's funny. Anyway, okay. I think we should we'll call it up there. But anyway, so yeah, good Skype conversation. Good for my late nights.
Yeah, this was good. I enjoyed it.
All right. Thanks, mate.
Not a problem.